Father, as we come today, asking this food will strengthen and nourish our bodies, that you will be glorified, you will be honored, that we will in turn strengthen and nourish your kingdom. Father, we also pray that everything that's said, done, and thought here will bring glory to you as we look at our future as a nation, as a state, as a city, as county elections, etc. that are going on. May you be glorified. May your will be done. Nothing more, nothing less, and certainly nothing else. Your word teaches where two or three are gathered in your name, there you are in the midst also. We thank you for joining us. And it's in the only name that has the power to make these things happen. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Today we're blessed to have three different speakers today. I'm going to start out with Matt Von Tungeln. I'll get it right. Hey, you're from the district, from El Reno, from District 60, running for office. That's the office right now held by Dan Fisher. So I'm sure it's going to be a good race, you know, and we're anxious to hear what you have to say about why you're running. And what we're going to do is, after Matt, then we have Matt Stacy who's going to speak, and then following him, Dr. Taylor. I guess, what do you think, 15, 20 minutes, whatever? 20 at the most. Okay. Each one of them will get 20 minutes. And when each one of them, as they finish, we'll have a little time for questions and stuff. But, you know, we don't run that on too long either, because we are on time limit here. So we'll be monitoring that part, and, you know, if you can, keep your questions down to one question for each. That way we don't get into a long debate or something else, all right? So, is there any announcements that we need about the upcoming deals that I'm not aware of or know of?
My name's Mike. I'm with the Veterans of Foreign Wars post in Moore, and just wanted to let all the Vietnam veterans know that the DAR, the Daughters of the American Revolution, along with the American Legion and the VFW in Moore are sponsoring, I guess, or hosting a Vietnam War 50th anniversary commemoration celebration. Now I can breathe. And it will be April the 23rd. It will be down at the Hillsdale Free Will Baptist Church in their auditorium right there off of I-35 in Moore, just, I guess, north of Indian Hills. And it starts at 10 in the morning, and we're going to be doing refreshments, and we're going to recognize all the veterans, Vietnam War veterans. So anybody that is a Vietnam War veteran, there is an email, and you can go on the website and find out, but I believe it's Betty Worley at cox.net. And I believe that you can send her your name and the time the period that you were in Vietnam, and they will prepare a certificate for you, and you will receive that certificate at the presentation or the commemoration, or they can have it sent to you. And I believe you're supposed to get a little help in for the 50th year commemoration. So anybody that would like to attend, you're free to come.
What's the dates again?
April 23rd.
Okay.
That is I believe it is a Saturday. 10 a.m.
Yes, sir.
My name is Neil. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I've been fighting the VA. And I've been using Vietnam Corners to assist me. And I was pleased to receive notice yesterday that the VA has taken a second look at blue water ships that were off the coast of Vietnam, which I was on. And a lot of the water that was pumped into those ships they found on the USS Midway, which is sitting in San Diego right now, is a museum that has a lot of that Agent Orange junk in it.
Yep.
And so the ship I was on was a sister ship, Coral Sea, so I guess I'm gonna go get a test for Agent Orange. But if anybody's veteran or from the ships that were off the coast of Vietnam, if you don't know, check with Veteran Corners, they got some information for us.
I wasn't in the Navy, but I do know that the Navy saved our butts a couple of times. And so I wanted to get everything they did, and yeah, there was, you know, for so many years the VA and the government said they weren't, you know, recognizing the blue water as sailors because they didn't think they were in country. Well, they didn't have to be in country to get into Agent Orange and stuff.
Yeah, my name is Jerome Montgomery, and I'm volunteer board of directors for this group. But what we've got is a guy from out of Massachusetts with the name of Jim Fitzgerald. He's an ex-detective in New Jersey, New York City, and he is a national guy for support your local police and keep them independent. And I'm a local guy in that committee, and he's going to be here in the 9th and the 10th of May. And matter of fact, he's going to be here. There's going to be a dinner here that night for him. So what I'd like to ask, and I'd like to talk to the board of directors about it, if we would like to have him to speak to this group. He's a fantastic speaker. He was here way a long time ago. I don't know what the date is. A long time ago in Clouds Over America. And here's the data on him, and I'll get a brochure. I've got a big flyer, but I couldn't find it, but I got this data right here. But he is a dynamic speaker, and he's very informative. And if this group would like to have him on that Monday, I'd like to get everybody's permission or okay.
Yeah, if you'll get with me,
I'll
I've got a calendar started and stuff. So
I've got a much better deal than this, but
Okay.
I want to talk to him. But he was in this right here, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds like a good date,
Yeah.
sounds like a good time.
And he'd be one of the speakers, and then the dinner is going to be Tuesday night.
Okay?
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir.
Jim, I wanted to ask you, what's the latest date for Vietnam era? They've adjusted it.
There's a website out there, Jim, that you can go to. It's Vietnam War 50th, 50th, ANV.gov.
But in the years, what are the years? You don't know?
54 to 75, I'm shooting for,
Pretty much.
somewhere in that neighborhood.
Well, that takes this killer table in over here. These trained killers all sit at the
Hey.
table.
I resemble that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, but, you know, I was a young boy. I wasn't, hadn't been 15 years.
I was there.
Okay. All right, any other announcements or anything? All right, whether I'm welcome to the stage, Matt, give us about 15, 20 minutes, whatever you need there, and then these people will tear you apart asking questions.
I can guarantee you I will not need all 15 minutes. I'm one of the few politicians that doesn't like the sound of my own voice, but I'll give you a little brief history about myself, why I'm running, and what issues I feel like are very vital to our state going forward. As I said, my name is Matt Von Tungeln. I was born and raised in El Reno, grew up on a small farm out there. My family's lived on that farm for over 100 years. Attended a church named Easton Church just west of El Reno. My family also helped to found that church. It's on land that was owned by my family at one point in time. I went to El Reno High School, then Oklahoma State University, and then University of Oklahoma College of Law. I'm a practicing attorney, but before you throw anything at me, I do mainly oil and gas work and estate planning and probate work. I don't actually sue anybody or anything like that, so I'm one of the good guys, hopefully. Now then, why I'm running. I've always had a deep passion for our state, and especially for the area that I'm from. And right now, we're facing a very pivotal time for our state. We're facing a $1.3 billion budget deficit, and I think it's growing more every day. From what I hear from a lot of people that are in the know, it's very likely that we won't have our budget situation solved during the general session, and our House is going to go into, or House and Senate are going to go into special session, which is another $100,000 a week. we need to look into our state budgetary situation. 6 years ago, we had about the same level of income as the state that we do now. 6 years ago, we didn't have a huge problem with our budget deficit, but right now we do. We need someone who's willing to get in there and actually look at our budget, roll up their sleeves, find where we're spending too much money, and reallocate those resources where we need them. Another issue that I want to address is our state's economy. I deal a lot with farmers, and I deal a lot with oil and gas companies. The energy and ag industries do so much for our state, but when we get hit with times of low commodity prices like we are right now, our state feels a real pinch. We need to find ways to attract new businesses, new industries to our state without having to just open up the coffers to get them here. There's several industries that I think are key that we can bring into the state, including ag research, manufacturing, shipping. The next issue I want to address is our state's infrastructure. We've got roads and bridges that are crumbling that we need to repair. I've talked to many people that are involved with the highway systems that feel like we can get things done, get bridges repaired, the ones that are most vital, without having to increase our taxes, just properly allocating the resources that are already going there. And the last thing I want to address is education. I've got a public school education from kindergarten all the way through law school. I felt like it gave me a great start. However, I want the next generation of Oklahomans to have even better than I did. I've talked to a couple hundred teachers probably already. I've talked to every superintendent within my district. And pretty much the resounding thing amongst them is they just want the state to get out of the way. They want to limitize the standardized testing. Teachers want to teach more than anything. That's what they went to school for. That's what they signed up for. They want to have the freedom to be able to teach their students. And those are the main issues that I want to address, and that's why I'm running. But if you guys have any questions, I guess I should say while I'm here, I am a concealed carry license holder, lifelong member of the NRA, 100% pro-life, but I'd rather focus on the economic and social issues whenever I'm in the house.
Question? Hands up, hold on. Okay, go ahead.
Thanks, Paul. Where do you stand on the right to farm? HJR is coming.
I'm very much for the right to farm. There's, you can disagree with me as much as you want. You know, that's part of politics. Nobody's going to agree with you on every point. The Humane Society of the United States has pushed a lot of not friendly bills against farmers with limitations on using catch chutes, with limitations on how you work your animals, when you can work them, and various things.
Okay, you said you're very much in favor of the right to farm. Are you in favor of the HJR 777 that's going to hit in November, where we can vote and make it a constitutional thing in the state constitution, or just leave it the way it is?
I'm in favor of the state question 777, voting yes. Yes.
So you,
Jim over here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, are you in favor of saluting the flag and patriotism as you were?
Okay.
And apple pie, how about apple pie?
I love saluting the flag. I love apple pie. I love everything about it. Sir.
My name is Jim also. I agree with you about the question, what you said about the budget process. But how would you, as a new member, be able to crack the cabal of 4 or 5 people in the House and Senate that actually control this thing, that do it all in secret, and then in the last week of the session come in and say, by golly, you got to vote for this? How are you going to approach something like that?
168 grades.
Yeah.
I mean, I realize it's not as easy as just walking in and looking at the books and figuring out where it is. But unless you have someone that's willing to try to fight against that, that's trying to get a spotlight shown on where the money's going, I mean, unless you actually try to do something, nothing's going to change.
Well, that sounds all well and good, and good luck to you if you get old.
Any other questions?
How do you propose to bring in companies to do research for ag and stuff like that? What kind of incentive would you offer them to come into the state to have these businesses here in Oklahoma?
With ag research, I think our state is #1 or possibly #2 on the amount that our state university system spends on ag research. And one of the key aspects that I've talked to a few people involved in state university systems to attract them is to One is to partner with those industries to where they don't spend as much on the research side, but once our state university system also would not spend as much because they'll be partnering with those industries, and then they share the patents or whatever projects they develop out of there, where they can, both our state university system and the industries coming in can lower their cost and still achieve the same results.
Got a question?
Who would have accountability over all of these things?
Over the state university system?
Well, you're talking about bringing people in ag situation and others. Who's gonna have the accountability between the research that's going on in the colleges and the companies themselves to make sure that the best interest is being served by the people?
Still be controlled by the state regents for each university system.
I have a question in reference to that 1 cent sales tax that President Bourne wants for the
Yes.
state. What's your stand on that?
I'm against that. I feel like it's being pushed through as a raise for teachers, but there's too much money that comes off the top for higher ed. Higher education system is not willing to open up their books for the legislature to review. They just ask for money without saying why they need money or where they need that money to go to. And so, because of the fact that higher ed gets such a big cut off the top, I'm against that state sales tax.
Okay. Got one here. Go.
My name is Jerome. You know, if you listen to the news, there is a big, seem like an anti-capitalist mentality going on. Can you address this in a real short fashion? Basically, I guess, what is capitalism? And if there is an anti-capitalist mentality, there tends to be an ideologue that says we need to replace it with socialism. Can you address that real short and sweet? And if you cannot, after you get good with your answer, I'll be glad to give you offers of solutions.
Well, my theory of capitalism is pure capitalism, allowing the free market to control the allocation of resources and wealth. There is a pushback against the free market pretty much everywhere, and my solution to it is just to get out of the way and let business thrive. Less regulation is better government to me. Is that your satisfactory answer, or do you want to expound on what I've said?
I would real short. Look around this room, look around your house, look around the world. This is capital. Everything you see is capital. So it's the moving and manipulation of capital. So there's an ideologue that says that capitalism is bad, and therefore the ideologue is to say we need to replace it with socialism. So if you look at the world is a capitalist world. Even the communists have capital. So here's really what it boils to, sir. It's either monopoly capital or free enterprise capital. And the free entrepreneurship of capital is the movement, manipulation of stuff and things you have and I have and what we all have. So the idea is the communists are a monopoly capitalist, and the United States is a free enterprise capital. So in effect, the world is either a monopoly capital world run by the socialists or the collectivists, or the other one, the free entrepreneurship capitalist run by guys like you and me and all of us in this room here. So it's free enterprise capital versus monopoly capital of this here stuff and things, oil, toilet paper, whatever you want to call it, you know, cars, computers, John Deere tractors and everything. This is all capital. And it's the movement of this stuff, whether it's monopoly or free enterprise. Okay?
Okay, we're done with that?
All right, thank you very much. I have my cell phone number on there if you want to call and ask me more questions or shout at me anymore. I appreciate it.
All right. Our next speaker is Matt Stacy, runs from District 23. Is that, am I right? Is that right?
That's right, District
Okay.
23.
All right.
Yeah, gradient Canadian counties. Most of Canadian counties, except the little gerrymandering going on. I lost most of Yukon and all of Mustang. So
And who is currently in that position?
it's Ron Justice, is the current senator, and he's reached the term limits, and so it's an open seat. It's an open race. So first, let me thank everybody for being here. Let me thank you for caring about your future. Let me thank you for caring about politics. If there's a lot of apathy out there, and generally not a knock on the crowd, but I tend to see a little bit more of a mature crowd is the only people that tend to care. And it's troublesome for a lot of us, and it's troublesome for a lot of people. You know, a lot of friends that are a lot younger than me, and you know, I can't understand the mindset sometimes of just not caring and not wanting to be involved in a system that affects them every day. So I can tell we got a pretty conservative crowd, and that's great because I'm a conservative, so I fit in well. Let me ask, are there any Democrats in the crowd at all? And it's not a bad thing. I just want to understand if you're on the Bernie side or you're more like a Brad Henry Democrat. Because there could be a bad thing if you're on the Bernie side. I don't think I agree with any policies there. But I know we got a lot of military in here. Any military, just let me thank everybody for their service in the military, and law enforcement as well. So you got law enforcement hat, yeah. Well, thank you for. It's a tough job. It's a tough job. Sometimes a thankless job too.
What's the new quote? Blue lives matter?
Blue lives matter. Anybody live in Grady in Canadian County? Grady or Canadian? Good, good. Oh, fine. Good choices. Good choices. Okay, well, a lot like Matt, I'm not a politician, and honestly, I don't believe politician is a career title. I think it's an honor to get to serve. It's something people should be privileged to have the opportunity to do. It's not what I am. I look at review this as I'm applying for a job. I'm asking you guys to hire me for a district to represent your interest up there, and that's it. It's not something I'm looking to go in and create an angle here so I can get appointed to this or that or whatever. None of that. I think that's the problem with the system is you have a lot of self-serving interest people get up there. That's not I own my own business and not relying upon the government. I don't need the government to come in and do things for me, and that's not the angle that I'm approaching this thing with. So let me tell you quickly about my background. I'm born and raised in Bridge Creek, Oklahoma, which you guys probably know is tornado capital of Oklahoma. I've seen a few out there, and went kindergarten through 12th grade all the way up Bridge Creek, and matter of fact, I live 2 miles from my house. You know, they say you always go back to your roots, and that's what I did. So went off to OSU. Good choice, Matt. Yep. Went out to OSU, joined the military while I was at OSU, joined the Army National Guard there, and then played a little bit of football at OSU. Wasn't going to say I was any good, but they let me stay on the team and you know, suit up. Beat OU once while we were there too.
Go Folks!
Anyway, finished that off, and then went off, did a bunch of military. I'm still in. 17 years in the National Guard now. I'm an intelligence officer. I'm the S2, or the Brigade Intelligence Officer for the 45th Infantry Brigade over here. And so, matter of fact, I coughed a few times. I got drilled this past weekend. We were out in the field, and I picked up every disease out there, and I'm still picking ticks off of me still. So they're out. Trust me, the ticks are out. And so, but again, I'm a lawyer as well. I went off, in the military somewhat. I did some graduate school, got an MBA, owned a small software company, and then came deployments after deployments. And in between deployments, I found some time to go to law school and got a law degree. Military career, I've gone 2 deployments to Afghanistan, 1 deployment to Iraq. Everyone's been an honor, and you know, they say you go back in an instant, and it's true. But I probably need to exercise a little bit before I go back next time. But yeah, it's and that's the thing. It's not about praise. It's the service thing that's important, and that's why I'm trying to convey this. This is just a transition. I'm 17 years in the Guard, looking to get into and represent people and continue my service to the community, because I know military career is starting to wrap up, and that's a little wrap. So anyway, so I found some time, went to law school, and I own a law firm with my wife. We own a law firm together downtown. She's a lawyer as well. We do a wide range. Doesn't mean you throw anything at me, but we do everything from criminal defense to adoptions. I mean, it's literally a general practice, and you know, the whole idea behind that is literally to, you know, serve people in whatever capacity that is, and you know, I'd eventually transition that to a small town law firm. Economics don't support that when you're first starting off, and you know, that's why you got to be in a little larger market. That's business. You know, that's the life. That's the real world. And so occasionally I do sue some people. I tend to think that I'm on the right side of those lawsuits, but I'm happy to answer any questions about any of them if anybody has questions on that. And so, but I look at it as I represent people, and people that are injured, or people that are in the lowest spot in their life, or people that are just trying to get a kid in their life, a baby in their life. And you know, I do a little bit of estate planning and probate as well. Probate's a tough time in people's lives. So, but that doesn't define me. The law firm doesn't define me. That's just that's what I do for a living. Service to community is what's important to me. And so, socially, I'm pro-God. consider myself an evangelical, and when I say I'm an evangelical, it means Christ is the center of my life. I've let Christ inform me in everything that I do, and I don't harbor that against people that don't, and that's okay. And my job is just to love other people and to lead by that example, and that's what I try to do. And so I'm pro-life, and I'll tell you, early in my life, I didn't know. The 18-year-old Matt Stacy who was living a tough life, I don't know. But I tell you what, as soon as I got a daughter, and 6 weeks in, I heard that heartbeat, and it changes everything. It changes your perspective on everything in the world. And so I think that we need to protect those that can't protect themselves, and the unborn are certainly among that group that cannot protect. They just can't protect themselves. What are they going to do? And so, absolutely pro-gun, concealed carry holder, NRA member. That's not a question. I don't think you guys would let me in the building if that wasn't the case. And I think it's funny when, not funny. It's tragic when people want to come and put a war on guns. I mean, it's about as effective as what I would call the war on drugs has been. It's not effective. And I'm not saying I'm pro-drug, but I'm saying let's think about it. It's just not effective, because the thing about guns is I'm one of them. My family, the most law-abiding citizens around. But I promise you, if you came and said, "Hey, you can't have your guns anymore," we'd be lawbreakers. And I think that's the case for a lot of you. And people just need to understand that I believe in protecting schools. I think there should be trained law enforcement or trained teachers that know how to shoot in schools. I think there needs to be that protection there. I think guns are there for a reason, and training is where people get that can use those to protect themselves. And so, and finally, I'm pro-business, but I'm also pro-worker. And that it sounds contrary, it's not. And what I believe in, I believe if you lower regulation, I believe if you lower taxes, I believe if you put things in place to help that business thrive, I believe that also benefits the worker. And so, that my goal is to push legislation through, or at least defeat stupid legislation that doesn't accomplish those tasks, doesn't promote the free enterprise, the capitalist system that we love and we embrace. More importantly, though, what drives me besides God is I'm a federalist. I believe strongly in the power of the 10th Amendment. I believe strongly in the power of the states. I believe strongly in the power to the actual people, which is the way it should be. Because I don't know if that they lost the message at the state capitol, but I know they have in D.C. that the government works for you and I. The government works for the people. It's not the other way around. We don't get to come dictate. Politicians don't get to dictate and say, "This is what this is what we do for you. You should be happy. Thank us for it." That's not the way it works. It's the opposite way around. And I know that we've lost that, and it bothers me. And I'm a strong Republican, but there's too much Republican, Democrat, partisan line, hard line stuff, and we're not accomplishing anything. That's why we have gridlock right now. Because if you're not in the old boys club, you're not in the club, and that seems to be the problem. And we got to work hard and consolidate. That doesn't mean you compromise on your morals and your values and principles, because each party is driven by one of those things. But if you can't see the light through to get something accomplished, then you're going to end up with a 10% approval rating and a gridlock and really accomplishing nothing. And that's the frustration I have. A $1.3 billion deficit, which there's no excuse for. Anybody in their right mind that's been in Oklahoma for more than 5 minutes knows that oil goes up and down, and you can only spend so much. And anybody that bounces a checkbook, which I assume everybody's bounced a checkbook at some point in their life, understands you can't spend more than you bring in, and you got to project future cash flows. That's just good. That's good practice. You know how much you're going to come in. If you're going to lose your job, you got to plan on cutting back. In this case, Oklahoma knew they were going to lose some revenue. They didn't plan on cutting back. I think they just kept writing checks and saying, we'll figure it out later. And it's that short-mindedness of the session that we have up there in the legislature that we have that is pushing those. And so, my goals, and I'm not naive. I know coming in as a freshman senator, limited influence, limited pool, limited ability to get things done, other than to stand firm on the principles that I have and to try to be smart and push people to make smart decisions. So I've got very simple goals. One is I'm never going to vote for or against a bill that I can't explain. And there's a lot of bills that run through there, and you're paying me, and I'm asking you to hire me to actually read, and I think and have a position on things, and that position should be formulated not only on the values that I'm sitting here telling you that I have, but upon the input of each and every one of you, especially the citizens of my district. First and foremost, it's federalism. I'm asked to represent the district, citizens of District 23. But beyond that, I understand we're a collective state, and so the input of the people is what's key in how I decide those issues. And I thought it would actually be transparent and accountable. And everybody should be able to ask me, to see how I vote on things, to be able to ask me why I voted on a certain way. If you disagree, please tell me, because you know what, I'm not an expert on every subject, and I can't even claim to be an expert on anything. But I try, and I know that a lot of people out here are experts on a lot of things. You're an expert on law enforcement 10 times more than I am, and so I don't know why I wouldn't ask somebody like you to inform me on a law enforcement bill that's coming through. It's crazy. And then finally, and this is my lofty, ambitious goals, I think you have to have one of those and you need to work towards it, is I'm trying to model if I get elected, I'm trying to model it a little bit after Tom Coburn, and I want to have an Oklahoma waste book. I think there needs to be that transparency, I think there needs to be that accountability in the way we spend, and that's not an easy project, and I'll tell you it's not, because there's a lot of people that want to hide that money. There's a lot of agencies that want to hide those dollars. And so I can't tell you I'm going to accomplish it. I can tell you I'm going to work my tail off to try to get to that point, because transparency is the key. Again, the government works for you. It's not the opposite way around. So I don't know why you shouldn't be able to see exactly where every dollar goes and have a say in where it goes. It shouldn't be us dictating to you where that money goes. So that's kind of where I have. I will answer the right to farm question. I will answer that for you. And I'll tell you, it's not popular. It's not popular in my district, but I'll go on record and say I'm against it. And the reason why I'm against it is because I'm against any legislation that comes in and it's going to protect one class of people against a different class. Not that I'm in a rural district. I mean, a lot of farmers, some of my family farms. That's what I'm saying. I don't think that you have to segment them out and continue to carve out special interest class, special interest class, special interest class, because I think that's contrary to the Republican ways. I think that you can protect farmers in other ways besides a bill that comes in and says we just have the right to farm, like it or not. It's the way it is. Tough luck. I know most of you aren't farmers, but we're going to protect our interest. You know, and so that's my position on that. And I know it's not popular.
Got a question here.
Two questions.
Name.
Don, my name's Don.
Yes, sir.
Number one, last week in the Senate, there was an abortion bill that would make abortion totally illegal.
Yeah.
Senator Bingman decided he would not hear it.
Right.
If that happened and you were there, how would you react?
You know, I'll tell you, and I don't know if this is popular either, but I don't agree with abortion, but it is the law of the land in the state in the United States, in the state of Oklahoma. I don't agree with it at all. But you know what I also don't agree with? When we're in a 4-month session, I don't agree on spending time on things that I know are blatantly unconstitutional and will never be upheld. I think abortion is a horrendous thing. But we can pass 150 bills up there that are symbolic, but it's not going to make abortion go away in Oklahoma. It's just not, because it's legal because of Roe v. Wade. That's why this presidential election is so important, because we're going to elect Supreme Court justices, and eventually those laws are going to get challenged. They're going to make their way up there. But as far as, I don't know Senator Bingman's motivation behind it, but I can tell you from a pure, spending being efficient with your time and doing what's important and representing people, I can tell you I don't think it was worth hearing either. Not because I don't agree with the premise, because I don't agree with doing things that are really wastes of time. And I say a waste of time, it's a piece of paper that will never be enacted.
I'll retract my second question because I don't agree with that at all.
My name's Jim.
Just a second, man.
Where do you stand on civil asset forfeiture as it is presently done in Oklahoma? And you have an opinion on what Senator Lovelace is trying to do?
I do. Yeah. Matter of fact, it's a big issue of mine because I've litigated several civil asset forfeiture cases in my practice, and I will tell you that the way I believe the way civil asset forfeiture is done right now is wrong. I think it's illegal. I think the way that it's done is not fair to the citizen. I believe power should be with the people, not with the government. And again, I know Chris West, the Grady County Sheriff, or Canadian County Sheriff candidate, is firmly opposed to what I'm saying, and that's okay. And that's not a knock on law enforcement, because I believe I've done a lot of civil asset forfeiture cases. In the vast majority, they're well-founded. The vast majority, they're trying to do the right thing. But the vast majority is one thing. It's whenever it's me or you or somebody else, and I happen to have $1,500 or $200,000 in my pocket. I'm driving down the road and I pull over and they say, "Well, you can come get it back, but you need to come to court and prove it." I don't think that's right. And the statistic that will help you understand that is the average civil forfeiture is about $1,200. So. And you can say that's drug money every time, and you can say it's not, or you can say, well, they didn't want to claim ownership of it. It doesn't matter. It's not the government's to take; it's that person's money. And I think I think Senator Lovelace's efforts were right on. I know they were blocked, and the bill was never heard, and I think that's a problem, and I think that's the politics side of it. That's the politics. The Judiciary Committee leader, I know, is angling for an AG slot. He wants to be the, and that's what's going on. That's the politics of it, and I think that's a shame. And that's why I'm excited. If I get elected, I know that I can step in and be on the Judiciary Committee right away, possibly even a chairman at some point, just because there's a lack of lawyers up there. Believe it or not, the legislature doesn't have a lot of lawyers. I know you think it does, but it doesn't. Especially on the Senate side, it has 6, and 4 of those are moving out. And so things like that are ridiculous. I think Sylvester Porter's 75–80% popularity to reform, and the fact that they didn't do that is pure politics in its worst form right there. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Karen, and just a minute ago you were talking about the abortion,
Yes,
Roe
ma'am.
versus Wade. Can you give me the bill number for that law, as you stated it was a law?
No, I'm sorry. Roe v. Wade is not a law, ma'am. It's the Supreme Court.
You said the abortion.
Yeah, there was
a
a
law.
You said it was law away. It's not.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Supreme Court
I
decision.
misspoke.
Opinion.
Yeah, I
It's an
misspoke.
opinion.
Yeah, I apologize. It's not a law, man. I'm sorry. I misspoke.
Okay, now, since everybody seems to be following Roe versus Wade opinion from the Supreme Court, everybody's calling it a law. Since they are doing that, that constitutes the Supreme Court has the right to make law.
Yeah.
Right. Which is not
So-
right. Yeah.
How can that law be enforced if it's not a law?
Right. And ma'am, then that lays squarely in the checks and balances of the system. The legislative branch can push forward laws, and the Supreme Court decides whether or not they're constitutional or unconstitutional.
Okay, I haven't found it in my Constitution.
That's the tricameral system of government, and I don't agree with it. I'm telling you right now, I don't agree with it. But
I understand that part, but until we get the wording right, the Supreme Court does not have the right to make law. They have the right to give an opinion, then the government, whichever source, has the right to either make a law for it or to just ignore it.
Yes, ma'am. You're right. You're right. But as far as that particular law or that particular opinion, it's constantly challenged, and it should be consistently challenged. But as of now, it has not been overturned. Now, whether I think it should or should, it absolutely should be overturned.
We have, what, 5 justices or not, 8 of them right now? 4
There's 8 right now.
Okay. That's just a very small group giving their opinion over the rest of us when we can see in black and white that it is not the right to murder in this country.
Sure. I agree.
There's supposed to be laws against it. Either we throw those laws out and go with Roe v. Wade, just call it abortion no matter how old they are, or we throw abortion out and we keep the murder laws.
Next question.
More of a statement than a question. I noticed, Matt, that in your brochure that you are also one of America's heroes. You did not tell us, but I read that you had 2 Bronze Stars as well as some other accommodations.
Yes, sir.
I salute you, Major, and thank you very much for your
Appreciate
service.
you. Thank you.
All right.
Sir, my name is Jerome Montgomery, and my question to you, sir, is kind of a 2-part question, sir. Have you heard of Article 5 Convention of the States called the COS? That's part 1.
I've heard of it, but I can't recite it to you.
Sir?
Yes, sir, I've heard of it, but I couldn't recite it to you.
Okay. Well, I know quite a bit about it, but I'm going to ask you, the stem of the question is, if you was a legislator, sir, are you running for senator or?
State Senate.
State Senate?
Yes, sir.
Well, either or, if you were a state senator, and this thing it's been pushed as a balanced budget amendment to limit the term limits and to limit the control over Supreme Court judges. Now, all of these seem to be very admirable and very, I guess you might say, conservative ideologies. And there, a lot of people who are pushing this are really true American patriots, and excuse me, and they're really conservative types, what we would classify as conservatives in this room. But so do you have any knowledge of this at all? And if you don't, well then I'm gonna help you with a little bit, short and sweet right now. But if you was given the option to vote for this thing, would you vote for it or would you vote against it?
The ideas you just espoused are all ideals I support, so I'd absolutely vote for something along. Yes,
So
sir,
yeah.
I would vote for that if it contains the ideals that you just mentioned. Those are all conservative ideals that I support, so I would vote for that.
Okay. Okay. If you happen to have a constitutional convention and it's an open to the constitutional convention, when the Articles of Confederacy was started, the 13 colonies a long time ago, it definitely got out of control. And instead of having 13 colonies, they made a ruling that only 9 of the states could vote. So here's the real gist of it, short and sweet, because other people's got questions. If this constitutional convention was to be set in motion, what they're trying to do is to write amendments to the Constitution. That's the game plan. But they could do that right now in the United States Congress. That could be done now. So they don't have to have a constitutional convention to do this. Part one. Part two, if you do have a con and it was to get out of control, they could completely, the liberal progressive socialists could completely rewrite our Constitution today. So we're setting ourselves up potentiality for throwing the baby out with the bathwater. But it sounds good, but the net effect could be a very dangerous thing for the Constitution of the United States. Something to think about, sir.
Yes, sir.
I got a lot of
Question in reference to the state. Governor Fallon brought up a topic last week, it was on the news, in reference to members of the military when they're at AFRCs or active duty, that they, so many of them are permitted to carry concealed for their protection, in reference to this killing of 3 Marines back east at a recruiting center.
Yes, sir.
What's your idea on that? Do they have it in practice right now, as far in Oklahoma?
Yes, sir, we do have in practice. Matter of fact, I'm considered one of those people that carry, and I carry my weapon on drill status, along with a lot of other people. Matter of fact, I would say that it's a pretty well-armed armory.
On Tinker?
No, not on Tinker. I go to the Norman AFRC, but they're also, Tinker's a federal installation, so the laws are a little different there. But now, that being said, I'll tell you, there's a lot of carrying on Tinker, too. Matter of fact, I'm guilty of it plenty of times. I just forgot it was there. Right?
I talked to Sergeant Long at the AFRC in Mustang, and he said they have it there. There's a few people that are qualified to do that right now. But it depends on whether the brigade commander will approve it or not if it passes.
Right, that's true, but every brigade, I know all the brigade commanders, and I promise you every one of them support that. He's right. There's a memorandum you must carry around from the governor that says, yeah, you're allowed to do that. But I'm telling you, in a practical standpoint, everybody's carrying something up there because they can, and it's in popular support. It doesn't matter whether they have the memorandum in their pocket or not.
All right.
Good. Okay. You're up, or go ahead. Dr. Taylor. You're up. This man is U.S. not state.
Can we have those lights flipped off, please? It'd be a lot easier. And I'm gonna go, and actually, honey, if you can, I'm gonna take the 20 minutes, but I'm gonna divide it up into 2 sections. So the first 15, some of you have seen this, we're gonna go pretty fast. I'm gonna skip some things just because of time, but we're gonna go ahead and get started with some of these things. I too am not a politician. I've been here many times. In fact, when it was on Friday, I used to come every week. But Monday does change things. It makes it a little more difficult. But I greatly appreciate the things that you guys have done, and for our servicemen and women, thank you for your service. The reason why I want to talk about my book is simply this. My book basically is my platform. That's literally what it is. So I'm going to go through this rather quickly and rapidly so that we can get some stuff done here. This is a pebble in your shoe. You guys heard me do this here years ago. This tape traces the history of the black voter. From blacks used to vote 100% Republican. Now they vote about 93% Democrat. This tells you why that occurred. This one here is, have we gone too far? This is the DVD version of my book right here. So this and this here, this book, this is the book version of the same thing. And obviously, this has a great deal more information in it. The DVD does not have the stuff about immigration I'm going to talk about. It's a sad thing to watch a nation die on your watch, is what Jack Hibbs, pastor, said. And I think that all of us in this room can agree that we feel that the nation is going in the wrong direction. There's some problems going on, and so we are concerned about this. I'm going to go fast through this. I'm going to talk about past, present, a generational change. We've got to a point where we're not even ashamed anymore. We don't even know how to blush. And the scriptures talk about that. This audience will appreciate this. You remember Cross Your Heart bra commercials? Remember that? Where they had a mannequin, and they took a tape measure, and they crossed it over. Remember that? Well, today, Victoria's Secret commercials are downright erotic. And here's the problem. We're the frog in the kettle. We don't even blush anymore. It doesn't have any impact on us. So we're just slowly turning up the heat towards something that would cause us to gasp. Now, it's like, what's the big deal? We don't even recognize it anymore. I was born in 1958, so here's what is happening in the 50s. In the 50s, abortionists were considered scum. Now, I'm just a messenger, don't get mad at me. They were considered scum, and they were arrested. Homosexuals were still in the closet and was considered deviant behavior by the medical community. Okay? Drugs were something you brought in a pharmacy or a drugstore. Alcoholism was considered a sin, not a disease. Public school students prayed in their classes, read their Bible, and creation was taught as an alternative to evolution. Now, here's another one I think you guys get a kick out of. High school graduates can actually read their diplomas back then. Okay? That's a big deal. 10 Commandments were still legal. Houses and cars were never locked. I remember my dad leaving the keys in the car.
Yeah.
We'd go into the house, guess what? We'd come out and the car and the keys were still there.
Yeah.
You do that today, ain't not gonna be there today. Social Security was a job, living on welfare was considered a disgrace. Women didn't cuss back then. Homemaking was honored and daycare was provided by mothers in their homes. Let me show you how we have changed. There's been a generational change since that in that short period of time. Here's how things are. Do you remember the Virginia Slim commercials?
Yeah.
We've come a long way. Baby, and it's all in the wrong direction. Today we spend more on gambling each year than we do on food. Today we kill, actual numbers, 3,000 babies a day, and they were freedom of choice for women. Today our families are destroyed by an epidemic of spousal abuse, child abuse, and divorce. Today, this is sad, we consume 55% of all illegal drugs, yet we only contain 5% of the world's population. What's wrong with this picture? You know, today our homes are fortresses with bars on the windows, guns in the cabinets, electronic security systems monitoring the doors and the windows. Today our schools are filled with drugs, rebellion, and violence. Today our governing bodies are full of corruption, all from the local all the way to Washington. Doesn't matter. There's corruption going on. That's the problem. Today our churches are apathetic and compromised by world leaders. This is what's happened. It only took Israel, the nation of Israel, and also those of you who know me, I'm also a pastor. That's my first love as the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm also a pastor. But it took Israel only took them 50 years to go from God is God to Baal is God. When Joshua led the people of Israel into town, into the promised land, there was only 50 years difference between God is God to Baal is God. Folks, we are at that place now. We've removed God from our schools, from our businesses and things. We can't even pray in schools anymore. They have a moment of silence, and if you do something, it gets to be a problem. So that's the first thing we'll look at. Now, this is really interesting. In the 40s, they're going to do this again in 2020. In the mid-40s, talking, chewing gum, making noise, running in the halls, getting out, turning lines, wearing proper clothing, these were not putting paper in the wastebasket were the #1 problems in our public schools. Now look at that list. Now, when was the last time you heard a teacher say, I can't take it anymore, I'm going to quit, those kids never put paper in the wastebasket? You haven't heard that. Well, let me show you what it's changed to now. Today, here's what it is. Drug abuse, alcohol abuse, pregnancy, suicide, rape, robbery, assault. And now, in my book, I go into greater detail. It talks about burglary, arson, bombing, murder, suicide, absenteeism, vandalism, extortion, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, gang warfare, pregnancy, abortion, and venereal disease. We've come a long way, maybe. That's dealing with America's past real quick. Our founding fathers believed in accountability before God for what they were doing while they were in office. Boy, do we need to get back to that. They actually believed that God would hold them accountable for what they were doing. In fact, when you read the congressional record, when they were at the Constitutional Convention that Jerome was making reference to earlier, at the Constitutional Convention, they're sitting there having this conversation, and they're writing it down. The conversation went like this. We know how God punishes individuals when they sin, but how does God punish a nation when a nation sins? And so they began to have this conversation. They began to talk about when David numbered his troops, and God killed 70,000 people in Jerusalem alone. They began when Ahab and Jezebel were leading the people astray, and God caused Elijah to come in and say it's not going to rain for 3.5 years. So they began to say God uses national calamities to punish a nation when a nation sins. In fact, George Mason, who's known as the father of our Constitution, said this: as nations cannot be rewarded or punished in the next world, they must be in this, by an inevitable chain of causes and effects. Watch this: providence punishes national sin by national calamity. Now listen to this. If you get up and say Katrina was the hand of God, they'll laugh you out the pulpit. They'll think you're a nut job. But our founding fathers believed that. They believe that God uses this to judge the nation. Okay? We live in a place now where everyone does what's right in their own eyes. If it feels good, what? Do it. That's how we live. We also got to a point where we're at a generation that does not know the Lord. We are raising up a generation. These kids, these high school kids, they may be going to these big churches and these big youth groups and having a great time, but let me tell you what's happening. 75% of them, when they leave from their mom and dad's coattails and they get to college, guess what? They're leaving the church and they're not coming back. We got a major problem. There's more in the book about that, but we're going to go on. That's what our founding fathers did. We're going to talk about this. Christians are devoted to economic issues. It's the first. Does a candidate know that God promotes economic self-sufficiency through work? Let me tell you something. Do you know that before God gave Adam a wife, he gave him 2 jobs? First was to tend the garden. The second was to name all the animals. So if you got any daughters that are looking at getting married, if the brother ain't working, tell her to leave him alone. Yeah. I'm telling you, because they will regret that. Here's why this is important. Here's what the scripture says. For even when I was with you, we used to give you this what? Order. If a man isn't willing to work, don't let him eat either. See, this is what Paul says. Paul says that if you are not willing to, and again, please don't misunderstand. I'm not talking about people who are unable to work. I'm talking about people who are very capable of working. Big difference. Paul says, if you got brother so-and-so in your church and they're lazy and they don't want to work, Paul says, let them starve. You mean you're going to let brother so-and-so starve? Yep. See, that's hard for us to understand. Here's why this is important. Now, here's why this is important. You need to understand it because if a candidate needs to understand that they need to, the government's responsibility is to guarantee equality of opportunity, but to leave equality of results to individual work ethic, drive, and their abilities and talents. Government is not in the business of picking winners and losers. They're not. I don't care what it is, what it issues. And I want you to notice this from the parable of the talents. God knows that people have different talents and abilities. The parable of talent, even non-Christians know that. To one he gave 5, to one he gave another 2, and to another 1, each according to his own abilities. Here's the second thing. Does a candidate know that God has created the earth to experience cycles of heating and cooling? That global warming is completely man-made. Now you laugh, but they're looking at talking about arresting people for thinking that it's not man-made. Okay, here's why this is important. Let me show you. Here's what God says. God says in Genesis 8:22, He has already built into the earth cycles of heating and cooling. It's not man-made. Do you know that there was global warming during the Viking Ages, and there were no SUVs back then? Do you know that the scripture teaches in Psalms 147 that God says, I'm responsible for the weather. Now here's why this is important. If a candidate thinks that it's man-made rather than God ordained, then here's what they're going to do. They're going to introduce rules and laws and regulations that will absolutely do nothing to touch global warming, but will increase our debt and our reliability. In fact, this is just used as an instrument for redistributing wealth. That's all it is. That's all it is. But there's stuff in the book that deals with it. We're going to go on to time-wise. Does the candidate know that God warns about excessive debt? I wish I could spend more time on this because we got a major problem. And I'll talk about that later. So I'm going to go on. Does the candidate know that God teaches that alien immigration among you must obey the laws of the land? Do you know the scriptures has over 160 verses about immigration? Most people don't know that. Let me show you one. This is probably the most common message. As for the assembly, that there should be one statute for you and one for the alien who sojourn with you, a perpetual statute throughout your generation. As you are, so shall the alien be before the Lord. There is to be one law and one ordinance for you and for the aliens who sojourn with you. So this is what he's saying. This is how it should be done. This is a common thing. There should be one law for all. Now, let me illustrate this for you like this. Everyone, even non-Christians, know the story of Joseph. Joseph was sold into slavery by his own brothers, basically for some beer money. But the anointing of God was with him. What happens? He ends up in Potiphar's house. What happens? Because the anointing of God was with him, he rises to second in charge of Potiphar's house. Through trumped up charges of rape, what happens next? He gets thrown into Egyptian jail. Now let me tell you something. When them Egyptian boys said life, they meant L-I-F-E. You weren't getting out. But guess what? The anointing of God was with Joseph, and guess what happened? He rose to second in charge of the prison. Next thing you know, Joseph now is in second in charge of all of Egypt. Now, please understand this. Joseph became Egyptian. He had assimilated into Egyptian culture. He had an Egyptian name, he had an Egyptian wife, he learned the Egyptian language, he still was able to understand his culture. He had become Egyptian. He had so assimilated into the Egyptian culture that when his 10 brothers came to buy grain, they didn't even recognize him, not once, but twice. Now, with that information, let me make the comparisons about what I want to talk to you about immigration here. Here's the first thing. Oh, wait, let me say this. I need to have this in there because I've added this slide and I always keep forgetting to do it. Here's what it says. Please understand the argument that's going on right now at our national level in regards to naturalized citizen. There is some, here's what happened. This man here, Jacob Howard, he's a senator from Ohio. He's the author of the 14th Amendment. He's the author, okay? Now please understand how this is worded. This, he's talking about the 14th Amendment. If you're born in America, you're an American citizen. But there were exceptions. Here's what the exception was. Now notice what he said, this will not, of course, meaning, well, everybody knows this. I mean, we shouldn't have to write this down, but everybody knows this. Watch. This, of course, includes persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens who belong to the families of ambassadors or foreign ministers accredited to the government of the United States. He says if you are an alien living here in America and you're not here, you have a child here, your child is not an American citizen.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just telling you what it is. That's not how they're applying it. This is the author of the 14th Amendment. Here's what he says about it. Well, that's a whole other story. Now, here's how this works for us. Immigration requirements, here's what the scriptures tell us. They need to get permission from the host to be admitted. They had to assimilate into the culture. They had to learn the language. And they had to obey the laws of the host country. That's what needs to happen. If they're not obeying the laws of the land, let's stop right there, and we need to deal with that. Let's go on. So first, Christians are to vote on economic issues. Christians are to vote on social issues. Here's this. Does the candidate know that God makes no distinction between the born and the unborn? Watch what the scripture says. For you formed my inward parts. You wove me in my mother's womb. Jeremiah 1:5 says, before I was formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you a prophet to nations. But please understand, conservatives say life begins at conception. God says life begins before conception. Now that's okay. I can live with that. I'll say life begins at conception. But God says life begins before conception. And that the issue of abortion, it is not the law of the land. It is not the law of the land. Let me just tell you a little, because of time I don't want to go into a lot of detail. Here's the deal you need to understand. Supreme Court does not make laws. Who makes laws? Legislative branch. Here's what happened. When the Supreme Court ruled in 1857 in the Dred Scott decision, they ruled, quote, blacks were not persons and therefore they were property and therefore had no rights which a white man should obey. Time out. I don't appreciate that. But that's what the Supreme Court ruled. That was their opinion. Do you know how the legislative branch handled that? Here's the first thing they did. They passed the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment as a direct result of that stupid ruling. Okay? The 13th freed all slaves. People think that Lincoln freed the slaves with the Emancipation Proclamation. No, the Emancipation Proclamation only freed slaves in the South. In fact, even the 13th Amendment didn't actually completely eliminate slavery. It left a clause in there for prisoners. You need to check that out. So we still have slavery in America. I mean, that's really amazing. Then the 14th, we just mentioned about the born in America, and the 15th gives blacks the rights to vote. Sorry. Let's move on. Does the candidate know that God established heterosexual monogamy as the pattern for marriage? Listen. God says this, for this reason a man shall leave his father and mother, and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. This passage in Romans, for this reason God gave them over to degrading passion for the women, exchanged the natural function for that which is unnatural, and in the same way also the man abandoned the natural function of the woman, and burned in his desire with one another, men with men, committing indecent acts, and receiving in their own person the air. Here's why this is important. Just like in 1857, the Congress made some decisions in regards to decisions that were made here, we need to do the same thing, because just reading this, in England and in Canada, which we follow this stupid pattern, in England and Canada, this is considered hate crime. I'm a pastor. I want to be able to read this and not be fearful of being arrested. So I'm wondering, why haven't any legislators introduced something to protect us? See, because if you look at history, you find out that in the gay community today, UCLA studies show that out of the Williams Institute in 2011, if you watch television, you would think that the gay community is like 50, 75% of the population. No, it's not 10%, it's not even 5%, it's not even 2%, it's 1.7%. But you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it. Let's go on, I'm sorry. Does the candidate know that God encourages us to arm ourselves and be able to defend ourselves? Yes, I too am a concealed carry person. Okay? Here's what happens. The story is that when Jesus sent out the 70, he told the 70 that you know what you need to do is go out and don't take anything with you. Don't take clothing, a change of clothes, don't take a change of shoes, don't even take a money belt. And they went out and did their thing because that's where you get the famous passage, work was worthy of his hire. Well, when Jesus is getting ready to go out now in the upper room and he's going to send the disciples out, here's what he says that's different. And he said to them, but now whoever has a money belt is to take it along. Likewise also a bag. And whoever has no sword, that's the equivalent of our gun, whoever has no gun per se, is to sell his coat and buy one. Time out. Jesus says, listen, I know it's cold outside. If it's cold and you don't have a coat, you don't have a gun, you sell your coat and you get you a gun. Now, I'm not making this up. If you don't like, I use the New American Standard Version. You don't like that, get your King Jimmy. He'll say the same thing. It's the same thing. God expects us to be able to take care of ourselves. They said, Lord, look, here are 2 swords. And he said to them, it is enough. So Christians are to vote on economic issues. Christians are to vote on social issues. Christians are to also vote on foreign affairs issues. Now, I'm going to quickly go through this because of time. Does the candidate know that God is the one who has established individual nations? It is not, our sovereignty should never be upheld by an unaccountable group of nations called the United Nations under the guise of global governance. If it was up to me, the United Nations wouldn't even be on our soil. They wouldn't. If I had a choice in that, they wouldn't even be on our soil. They do not have American sovereignty in mind. God says this, and he made from one man, King James says one blood, every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined their appointed times and their boundaries of their habitation. God is responsible for the nation. Daniel 2 tells us God is responsible for placing leaders in a position and removing them. God says he's responsible for where the boundaries of a nation are, not the United Nations. So let's go on. My time is almost up. Does candidate know that God promises to bless those who bless Israel and curse those who curse Israel? I support the nation of Israel. I'm going to go on because of time. Does the candidate know that God is not a socialist? I want to get to this. Sorry, Bernie. Listen. Everybody knows the parable of the talents. He gave 1 5, he gave 1 2, he gave 1 1. The one who got the 5, he doubled. The one who got the 2, he doubled. The one who got the 1, he buried it and didn't want to use it. He didn't want to use it, so he buried it. Well, when the master comes back and he starts talking to him, he talks about, well, let me just read it. Here's what he says. Therefore, take away the talent from him, the one that used the 1 and buried it, didn't use it, and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. Time out. You mean that God's into redistributing wealth? Yes, but not like Barack Obama wants to do it. God says you take from the unproductive and give it to the productive. That's very different. Again, I'm not making this up. You got a Bible, write that down and look at it. Look at it yourself. People just don't read the Bible the way I read it. Because I think the Bible speaks about everything that we deal with in life. Everything. Now look what else he says. For to everyone who has more shall be given, and he will have an abundance. But the one who does not have, even what he does have, shall be taken away from him. God says, you know what? People are complaining that the rich get richer. Well, that's a biblical principle. It's a biblical principle. But people don't understand that. That's really the end of this stuff here. I'm going to skip through. I'm not even going to mess with the rest of that. I'm going to stop with that, and then I'm going to do something. Can we have the lights back on, please? And I'm going to talk about real quick. This is going to be real fast with the last minutes that I have. And I want to share about my candidacy. Here's what I want to say. It was Albert Einstein who said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. It is time to stop the insanity. Our elected officials bank on the fact that people are uninformed. Because that's how they keep getting re-elected into those positions. They bank on that. They anticipate that people are unaware. That's why someone like me who does homework and does research on, I do research on issues, candidates, I'm kind of like a dangerous person for them. Tom Cole, when he was elected to the House of Representatives in 2002, our national debt was $6 trillion. Today, it is $19 trillion and growing, significantly growing, big time growing. In October, Tom voted to suspend the debt ceiling. Now, please understand that. It would have been great if they would have put a debt limit, but that's not what they did. They suspended it, meaning there is no limit. It can grow 50 trillion, 100 trillion. Basically, they gave Barack Obama a blank check. Now, here's another thing that they did. In December, they voted on the omnibus bill. Wonderful Christmas present. Wonderful Christmas present they got for us. And then they go back after Christmas, and then they play this little game where they all voted to send a bill up to Barack Obama to defund Planned Parenthood, to defund Obamacare. And of course, Barack Obama vetoed it. You know why? Because in the omnibus bill, they gave him everything he wanted. Every one of our representatives, with the exception of Bridenstine, did that. Every one of them. Now let's look at this for a second. In fact, the Washington Times had an article, and it's read like this on January 19th. It said, federal deficit to soar in 2019 after Ryan Obama tax deal by 24%, the Congressional Budget Office said on Tuesday. Well, I'm the type of person, I like to go to the source. So I want to see, I went to the Congressional Budget Office to get the document to see what it says. You know what that means? It's going to grow by 24%. It means that right now, every one of our congressmen, with the exception of Bridenstine, just increased your debt by $4.5 trillion more dollars. Okay, my 20 minutes are up. Can I give me just about 2 more minutes? Is that okay? Thank you for being so patient. By 4.5 trillion more dollars. That's why we got to stop the insanity. This is craziness that we got going on. So that means this. Our national debt for every taxpayer. You guys are Republicans, so I know you all pay taxes. I know you all have jobs. So if you want to give to my campaign, that'd be great. Right now, every taxpayer is responsible for $158,000 to pay that debt out. But guess what these guys did to you and I? Tom Cole did to us. Mullins did for us. Russell did for us. They all voted to increase our debt. In the omnibus bill, now we got $37,609 more dollars. So we went from $158,000 to $196,000. Gee, thank you guys. In the omnibus bill, they still fund Obama. In the omnibus bill, we still fund sanctuary cities. In the omnibus bill, the Syrian refugee program. In the omnibus bill, the Middle East immigration program that we know have been infiltrated in Europe by ISIS people. And we're still funding that. I mean, don't get me started, I'm sorry. We are fully funding illegal alien resettlement program. Here, you want to be concerned about the economy? The H-1B bills, the H-1B foreign worker visas, it quadruples under this. It quadruples. So, if you are happy with Tom Cole, vote for Tom Cole. If you're happy that our debt has tripled since Tom Cole has been in office, vote for Tom Cole. If you're happy that they suspended the debt ceiling and have given Barack Obama a blank check, vote for Tom Cole. If you're happy that our taxpayer dollars are still funding Planned Parenthood, a private organization, vote for Tom Cole. If you're happy that our taxpaying dollars are still going to people who are here illegally and setting them up with all kind of benefits, vote for Tom Cole. If you're happy that Tom Cole, let me show you this. Let me show you this real quick, as this is the last thing I want to show you. This is Tom's sign, right outside of my city of Norman. You step outside, and here's what it says: conservative solution for a strong America, vote for Tom Cole. All right, well, let's analyze this. Here's what the Heritage Foundation gives him as a conservative rating, 36%. Here's what the Freedom Works, 45%. Here's what the Family Research Council, 75%. Club for Growth, 53%. Conservative Review, 40%. Now, let me tell you this. My lovely wife is back here in the back, Rafaela. Can you imagine me going to her and saying, honey, I love you, but I'm only going to be faithful to you 36% of the time? Now, how do you think she would respond to that? Now, I don't know if any woman would be happy with 36%. Well, Hillary might. She might be happy. But anyway, let's raise it up. Let's raise it up. Let's say, okay, honey, I'm going to be faithful to you 50% of the time. Will she be happy with that? No. Okay, honey, you know you're pushing it. I'm going to be faithful 75%. You should go for that. See? So if you're happy with him having the lowest, Tom has the lowest conservative. Under Heritage, there are 20 Democrats that have a higher rating than he does. Jesus. Yeah. Tom has the lowest ranking among our delegates in Washington. If you're happy with that, vote for Tom Cole. Thank you. If you're not happy,
Got a question here. Got a question.
Yes, sir, Jimmy.
My name's Jim, and you're an answer to prayer.
Well, thank you.
I moved into Coast District 17, 18 years ago, and I've been unhappy he's also an establishment handler. I think that's a conflict of interest. And I just welcome you.
You're preaching to the choir.
And also, you married way above your pay.
I did. I did, you're right. Absolutely. In fact, well, sometime I would love to share how I'm running. I am not running because I want to challenge one of the most powerful legislatures in the country. That'd be stupid. The only reason I'm running is because God told me to. And there's a whole story behind that. And I'm telling you, Tom was in his last 9 months of office.
All right.
And I will tell you this, every single thing I've said today, Thomas heard. I mean, say personally. I have no, it doesn't matter if he's there or not. I say the same thing. Yes, ma'am.
Got a question right here.
Well, actually, I could address it to all three, but, and I've heard Dr. Taylor speak before, so I'm a fan. I think that, this is kind of a comment, and all of you could comment, but I think that we have a problem that we have not faced, and that is that the indoctrination is in our education system. And I know you guys are proud of your orange, but by the time you get to the university, how many of those people that went to school with you at OSU are going to be voting Republican, conservative Republican? Not many, very small percent. And if we don't address that issue and start really looking at our schools, and you know, there's this big fight about school choice and charter schools and all this. If we don't address that, this country's gone. You cannot, I mean, how can a socialist, Bernie, get millions?
Win Oklahoma.
Yes.
Win Oklahoma.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, considering the other option, you know, with Hillary, but even that was surprising. I mean, it's like, that was surprising to me.
Yeah. Yes. And so, and this education problem needs to be taken care of at the state level. Get down.
I agree with it. I think that there's a lot of things at the federal level. The federal government has become an insatiable monster grabbing power.
Right.
The states must use the 10th Amendment and the 9th Amendment to re-establish who they are. It was the states who created the federal government, not the federal government creating the states. And that, they have lost sight of that. They've lost sight. So I see my role. I see my role as really like light and darkness. You know, that's really what it is. Because I have no delusions of being in the establishment pocket. They will not support me. They're going to support Tom. I'm guaranteeing you they're going to support Tom. But they're backing the wrong horse.
As far as Oklahoma, and I mean, I've only been here 2 years. I lived in Texas, but I can tell you this. You talk about your budget deficit, and I've been an activist for years. Oklahoma is spending ridiculous amounts of money on your state legislator. Texas legislator meets every other year with 29 million people in the state. You meet every year. It's ridiculous. If you can't take care of the business of less than 4 million people in a 6-month thing every other year, you really need to examine on this and get these school districts to merge and quit spending all this money. I mean, I am appalled.
Got a question over here.
Dr. J.D. Armstrong, and what you're reading up here on Tom Cole is exactly right. In the New American, which is a national syndicated magazine that I take, in the Freedom Index, which used to be called the Conservative Index, but they changed the name to the Freedom Index. There's so many phony conservatives. But anyway, the bottom line is Tom Cole had it 40 on, they had like 11 to 20 issues, and then 1 to 20, and his 1 to 20 was a 40.
Yeah, there's other indices out there, but
So,
how does a person that claims to be conservative, that's just, even on his print, how does a person who claims to be conservative justifies the 36. Now here's what, I've heard him say, well, those indices, you know, they look at certain things and they don't look at that. Hey, but people respect Heritage Foundation, people respect Freedom Works, people respect Clubs of Growth. I do. So I guess you're saying that they don't know what they're talking about. I mean, and here's, I guarantee you, every one of you have heard this from your congressman. I guarantee you, when you go and ask them questions, I guarantee you've heard this. Well, you just don't know how things are done up in Washington. Anybody ever heard that? My congressman told me that. No, that's what they tell you. I think they got a playbook. I don't know. I think when I get up there, I'm a terrible playbook. But anyway, they got a playbook that they use. Now, that's what they tell us all the time. Yes, sir.
Last question.
Well, this is a comment. I sent some money off to your website a while back, and I just filled out one of your old cards and put a check into it, and I want to tell everybody in the group, if you don't support this man, if we in this group, we don't support him financially, this other guy's going to win again and again and again. And he's going to keep getting his 30 percentiles. Please support JT. Please. He's
I mean, I've been here, and I'm not asking your support because I've been here, but, you know, my book, these guys, here's what my church people do. They know I do research. I research judges. I do my homework. I look at the issues before I go in there. I take a cheat sheet, even with the questions that we're going to be voting on. So they ask me, can I have your cheat sheet? Now, when it comes to judges, I basically say, just vote no for all of them. Because we got to fix this system here. And there's a little another note. People are under the mistaken identity or information that Supreme Court justices are appointed for life. That's a lie. According to the Constitution, they're appointed as long as they are serving in good standing. Check it out. I'm not making this stuff up. Which tells me an awful lot. There's some people that need to go. But you know whose responsibility it is to deal with it? The legislative branch.
That's right.
The legislative branch has the power and the responsibility that they've abdicated and just allowed it to go unchecked. So I mean, I don't know. I'm sorry. Maybe I probably shouldn't. I teach 8th graders history, and so probably teaching the Constitution is probably not helpful for me because I know it.
John has some club business to talk about.
Thank you guys for.
Thank you.